Ar-Rahman Rahim. In this lab we have to configure a remote access connection to a network device. This is a LAN connection using the network to configure the router and the switch, and it's possible for wireless access points. Our topology, we have PC, switch and router. The switch, we use PC and PC laptop or desktop. Then we have to add a switch to 960, and we add a router 1941, or you can use 2901 or 2911. Here we have to connect this device. We use the 3-throw cable from PC fast Ethernet to fast Ethernet 06 in the switch, and from fast Ethernet 05 and the switch to gigabit 0001 in the router. And we have to use the console cable to configure the switch and the router. For us, we will start by configuring the router, then we configure the switch. We use the console cable from the RS232 and the router and this computer, and we plug it in the console port on the side of the router. Here we have the addressing table, but first of all I will start by configuring device. We will configure the router console into router and privilege exec mode. You see here in this part we have to start configuration using the console port. We cannot start from the beginning for new switch or new router to use the LAN or the remote access to configure this network device. We need to add some configuration to this switch or to this router to be able to be used remotely control or remotely configuration. These things need IP address and passwords. We will start by configuring these parts in the router. From the computer we go to desktop terminal. Okay, we put no. Then we start with the first command to rename the switch as the router. Hostname enable configure terminal. Hostname R1. We have to configure the password. Which password I will configure? The enable password. For the enable password, we use the command enable secret and the example of the value of this password, for example, class. Okay, enable secret, and the variable here is the value of this password, for example, class. Then we have to configure the console password. I will access the line console and the line VTY. Line console 0 password Cisco, for example. Login line VTY 04 password Cisco. Login For the line console, now normally in this first configuration for this router we use the console port or the line console. If we need to use the remote configuration, we use the VTY ports. VTY ports, VTY teletype. This a kind of telnet communication between the computer and the network device switch or route, and to add some configuration to this network device. We need to create a password for this VTYs. We cannot use it without password. For this reason, we have to create line VTY 04, and we have covered this password, this mandatory password to access. Yani if you don't add this password, you cannot access to your router or to your switch using the telnet or the network connection. Another things needed for this access, the IP address. Yani if you need to access to any device, you need the IP address of this device. We have now to exit from the line configuration, and we will configure the interfaces of this router. We have this router, how many interfaces we have for our topology? One. Here we have one, but from the topology that we have in our lab sheet, we have two. This interface named loop interface. This is a logical interface. Logical, not physical interface. And we will see how to configure this. We need to configure this interface with their IP addresses to permit the remote access to the router. We go to the configuration interface gigabit 01 IP address. Which is the IP address? 192.168.1.1. This represents the gateway for the IP address for this port and the gateway for the network connect to this port. Then we have, the subnet mask after the IP address 255.255.0, and we put the command now shutdown to activate or to change the state from down to up for this interface. And if we check here, we have this color from red changed to green. I need to configure the loopback interface for router 1, the loopback interface. Yes. The subnet mask. We put the IP address and the subnet mask. For the interface loopback, I put interface loopback. Just put loop 0, or just if you need to use the tab to continue this command, just you put exit and you put interface tab L loopback 0. This is a logical interface. Just when I access to it, it is activated directly. Change state to up here, not like the physical interface gigabit 00. I access to this interface and I use the command now shutdown. For loopback interface, we don't need to use the loopback to put the command now shutdown. IP address for this interface is this IP, and the subnet mask 255, 255, 255, 250, 250, or 224, 224. Okay. Now for this command, for this step 2, configure the router, device name, disable DNS lookup, create moted banner message. This moted message, from the last lab, we know how to create this message. We don't need to do it now. Assign class password, we do it. Assign Cisco for the console and for the VTY. Encrypt clear passwords. Here, if we need to show this configuration, for example, if I put and I put the command show running configuration, here we have the class password, the enable secret password with high encryption. But if I check the other passwords, line console 0 and line VTY, and the end of here this show command, you see here we have a clear text for this command. We need to use service password encryption to encrypt this passwords in the configuration mode. We go back to the configuration mode, configure terminal, and we put the command service password encryption to encrypt this password. Now I put and copy running configuration to startup configuration, and if I do show running configuration, service password encryption. You see here for the Cisco, the password Cisco for the line console and the line VTY become encrypted after when we use the service password encryption. Service password encryption. Service. Here you have to access to configuration mode, and you put the command service password encryption. Okay. Now we have to use that we name Telnet connection. Telnet connection. The remote access to the router or to the switch, but for us for this router, because I finished this initial configuration, we need to use the Telnet or the SSH. If we use the Telnet, اللي هو an earliest method to access remotely to your network, we will not use the console cable. I will remove this console cable and I will access through the network to reach this route. To do this, we need to add the IP address for this computer. The IP address for this computer, I go to desktop, this computer 192.168.1.3, the subnet mask and the default gateway 192.168.1.1. Okay. To access remotely, we use the web browser, or we use not the web browser for this using the for our lab using the CLI, the command line interface. We will use the command prompt. From desktop, we go to command prompt, and we have here to put a specific command, telnet, T-E-L, net. If you don't know the syntax of this command, just you press enter. It gives you here the syntax of this command. You need to put the target. The target, which is the target? Yani the IP address of the destination or the network device that you need to access. And we need to access to our router. Which interface we have to access to our router? Gigabit 01. We put the IP address of the port gigabit 01. Telnet 192.168.1.1, and we press enter. Here it asks me password. Which password? Cisco class. We don't the value. We don't need the value. For which? The VTY password. The console, not the console, because the console is removed here. Here we have to access using the network. The VTY password. The VTY password is Cisco. Now we are in the user exec mode. Yes, user exec mode in my router. I put the command enable to access to the privilege mode. Ask me the password. Here the enable secret. The enable secret class or another password, but here we need to add the enable secret password that has the value class. Okay, now we are in our router using remotely access. Okay, telnet access. Okay, without console. This another network administrator. In the beginning, when we purchase a new switch or new routers, we use the console to configure this device. But after, when we need to update to add some modification, we will not at each time come to the to our cabin or to our not wireless, wired through the network. We use the remote access, like the remote desktop, to access to this switch or this router to add or to modify this configuration. Okay, now we can here put the command show running configuration, and we are in the router configuration using this telnet connection. Okay, for the switch I will do the same commands with the next part here. Before configuring the SSH to view some things, I need to configure the switch with the same commands but without password, to test the validity of the password to access remotely through the line VTY. I go to the switch. We use the console from the beginning, from RS032 to the console port on the switch. Then we access the switch. Here we have to use the terminal. Enable configure terminal, and we start by changing the name of the switch, rename the switch, host name S1, and we need to have the passwords. Level enable secret. We will not do the enable secret password. I will just add the interface, the IP address to access it. For the switch, we don't have ports with IP address because the switch cannot read the IPs, only MAC address. Which tools I use to access to the switch is the VLAN. For this reason, we have to access to VLAN interface and add an IP address for this VLAN interface. Then we can use this IP address to access to this switch. For this, for our topology, the IP address for this VLAN, you see here, interface for switch 1, VLAN 1, the IP address 111, and we have this gateway. We go to interface and the configuration interface VLAN 1 IP address 192.168.1.11 subnet mask 255.255.0. Okay, if I put the mouse on the switch, you will see this VLAN this IP address that I add for the VLAN, but the link state is down. If I don't up it, it will still down, and I cannot use it to access remotely to the switch. I need to the switch. I need to use the command now shutdown. And if you see now, the state is up. Now I can use the telnet to access remotely to this switch. But normally I don't specify the most needs parts to access to this. But I will test using I add the IP address. I will use the IP address to access to this switch. From I will close the terminal and I will open the command prompt, and here I will put here because from the last configuration here just I will put exit, and I will put telnet and the IP address of the VLAN 192.168.1.11. Telnet 192.168.1.11. Here normally someone of you will see another message. Connection to this is closed by foreign host, يعني by other configuration. But normally if we have the right configuration, we will see ask me the password. I will go back using the terminal to add the password. Cannot accept the remote access without password. And here I will put line VTY 04, okay, sorry, 04 or 015, because the switch we have many ports, 0 to 15, and we have password Cisco and login. We do it the same for the line console 0, password Cisco and login. Then we put exit, enable secret class. This is the value of this enable secret. The password is class, and service password encryption. Then we put and to copy and copy this running configuration to startup configuration. Now normally we have okay شباب, after when we have this configuration, now I will test the remote access to this switch using the command prompt telnet 192.168.1.11. Here we ask me the password. Yes, close your terminal or open the command prompt. Then we have here to put telnet, and here we ask me the password telnet 192.168.1.1. The password is Cisco or the VTY password. Here Cisco. I will repeat it again. Then now we are on our exec mode. I will enter access to the privilege mode, enable, and we have the enable secret password, and here we can show the running configuration inside my switch. Okay, now we have this remote access using telnet. Okay, to access remotely to network device, we need to configure the interface IP address, the enable secret password, and the line VTY password. That's the three things. The problem with the telnet nowadays is the security. Here we have an example of Wireshark captures for packets when we use a telnet connection. Here we have to capture this packet, and we have to select one of the telnet. We filter the captures with the telnet packets, and when we select one packet and we have to follow the TCP stream, we can here see the clear password used, اللي هو line VTY password used by this local connection, by this remote connection when we use
Any packet will include the password, the clear text password?
telnet packets.
Yeah, any packet of the telnet.
Yes. Telnet packets normally اللي هو from the source to the destination, when we have this communication. For this reason, this encryption or this mode to access remotely not used nowadays, and we replace it by SSH session with Wireshark. And if you see here, when we use SSH, we have this high encryption of this communication. Now we need to configure SSH communication when we use remote access. How to configure this? We have the steps in our lab. Configure router 1 for SSH access. We have to configure a domain like, for example, cnalab.com, or a domain, for example, for us, iau.edu.sa. We have to create an encryption key method. We have to create a username and a password to access, and we specify which interface or line we should be used to access, and we can enable telnet and SSH or only SSH. Okay, that's steps to configure the SSH access to the router. Now we will do this configuration using telnet. Okay, we'll do it for our router, not for the switch. We exit here, we put exit from this switch configuration, and we will put telnet 192.168.1.1 to access to the router. The password of the line VTY Cisco, enable password class, and we start by this configuration. Configure terminal. The first is to create a domain IP, domain name, for example, iau.edu.sa, like a server. Here this SSH is will act like a server, and this the domain to access to this server. IP domain name, this is the command, and the domain that we will use here, for example, iau.edu.sa. Now we have to configure the encryption. Crypto key generate RSA, and here we have to specify the size of this module RSA, and you can press enter here, and it will give you general purpose keys. Choosing a key module greater than 512 mistake, will select 1024. This is my crypto key generate RSA. Then we have to configure the local database username, for example, admin with privilege 15, secret, this to specify the password, for example, 12345. This is the password that I will use for this username to access remotely to this router. Then we will specify which method I will use to access, Telnet or SSH. And we will use specify the line, and then we have to select here the command, شباب, this command transport input. If you put telnet and SSH at the same time, it will give you an error. Just you put telnet transport input SSH. Okay, here we have to access to the line VTY 04 and to specify which method, transport input SSH. Okay, in which method of login, when we have a local login, local, and then we have finished the configuration of the SSH. I just put and I will copy running configuration to startup configuration. If you see here, we do this configuration using the telnet. Okay, the command prompt here. Now we can exit from this telnet and retest again if I can use the telnet or not. We put exit and I use the command telnet to rax again to this router. Here we have connection to 192.168.1.1 closed by following host. Now we cannot use a telnet. We can just use SSH. Which syntax of this command? Just I put SSH and press enter to know the syntax of this command. SSH -L username and target. -L, not one. Here we put SSH -L username, which is then we select or we create the database admin. Okay, the target, the IP address اللي هو 192.168.1.1. Here the password, which password? Which for no, this is the password for the admin, for the username and password. 1 2 3 4 5. Here we don't use the password for the VTY. We will use the password for this account that I add to this database. Okay, اللي هي username admin or password 1 to 5. Now we are in the router privilege mode. We can do show running configuration using this command. Using secure shell, SSH secure shell connection. You look here, Shabab. Just we have for the live VTY, we can only use SSH to access. We cannot use the telnet. Okay. The command to test the connectivity, verify network connectivity. I will ping to my computer. Ping 192.168.1.3. Here we have 6 success ping between my router and this PC. You can ping to the VTY and switch 1. Now we need to gather network device information. In this part you will use a variety of commands to gather information about the device in your network, as well as some performance characteristics here related to the network performance. Network documentation is a very important component of managing your network. Documentation of both physical and logical topologies is important, as is verifying platform model of iOS network version of your network devices. We will use this command, gather information on router 1 using iOS commands. Use the appropriate command to discover the following information: the router model, iOS version, total RAM, total NVRAM, total flash RAM, and iOS image and configuration register. Okay. Here we will use the command show. Which command can show this information? Router model, iOS version, total NVRAM. To find commands or the appropriate commands, we use the question mark, shift question mark. We have here AA to show AA values, access list, ARP, CDP. But here we need to find information. Question mark. Here to show the content of login buffer, we need information. Go to the end of this list. You have version, show version, system, hardware, and software status. Okay. When we use this command, we can show this things. Show version. Yes. To find the router model. What is the router model? Yes. In which line you have the router model? Here we have the router system with stack version. Here we have release software Cisco 1941. System image file has the before last one. The system image file, this is here C1900 universal. This is the system image. The total RAM before this, the iOS version. Here we have the iOS version, Cisco iOS software. The version is here 15.1 M4. The total RAM, here we can press enter to show more information. You can find other things from this part. Total RAM. What is the total RAM? Here we have the DRAM configuration is 64 bits wide with disable. Here we have the NVRAM 255 byte of non-volatile configuration memory. And here we have the total flash memory. Okay. Configuration register and technology package. Yeah, normally this to show this information you have to use the show version command, can be used to from either the user exec or privilege exec from. The next question, use the appropriate command to display a summary of important information about the router interfaces. The command is show brief, show IP interface brief, show IP interface brief. Here we have the information about each interface connected to the router. For our router we have gigabit 00 down because we don't do any configuration for this interface. Gigabit 01 configured with the IP address and it's up, and the LOPAC interface configured, and the VLAN interface not configured inside this router. P interface which command we use to display a routing table? Show I, show I, show table. We use the command show IP route, this command. For our router, normally don't configure the static routes, just we have the direct connect networks. I use the command show IP route. Here we have the routing table for our router. Normally here we have two interfaces, and for each one, two interfaces, LOPAC interface and gigabit 0 interface. For each one we have a local and connected path or route. For this for the LOPAC, and this one for gigabit 01, gigabit Ethernet 01. Now command to display the layer 2 and layer 3 mapping address. Here we will use the command show ARP. Show ARP. Which is the ARP? ARP address resolution protocol. Which then is
to know the MAC address.
To know the MAC address, or to know the unknown MAC address for a known IP address. Here we have this for each interface, gigabit 01, yes, gigabit 01, we have this IP address, and this is MAC address, and this for which one? The PC. Yes. Like this, I give us the history for this ARP table, and here we have MAC address of this. For example, if I do the ping to the switch, ping to the switch, switch has the IP address of the VLAN اللي هي which 192.168.111. Here we test the ping to this IP success. If I repeat the same command, show IP route, we will see that in this routing, this ARP table, we have a new address. Show ARP. Okay, you see here, we have this new addition MAC address of this switch. To know the neighbors of this router, we use the command show CDP neighbors. Show CDP neighbors. Which is the neighbors of this router?
The switch.
The switch. Here we have this switch, and here we have which neighbors can be a router, can be a trans bridge, can be a source route bridge, can be a switch, can be a host, can be. If, for example, I add quickly in this topology, I add a computer, a laptop, and I connect it to the router. Using the crossover from the gigabit 00 to the fast Ethernet, and I assign an IP address for this laptop 192.168, for example 10.3. Now we need a gateway 192.168 10.1. Excellent. And we have here to add the IP address for this gigabit from the router. I go to CLI, to config gigabit 00. I add the IP address 192.168.10.1 and the subnet mask here, and I select on to activate this interface. Now if I repeat the same command, show neighbors, show CDP neighbors. We have just switch on because I will do a ping to this laptop, to this computer, 192.168.10.3. Okay, now I repeat the command again for neighbors. Don't yet find this. Yes, I do this ping. I will repeat the command show ARP. Here we have the new network. Show IP route, for example. And when we add any device, we can find this information from the router. Here we have the new 10, oh yes, this one, for the new device that I add to this network. Gather information about the switch. We go to here we put and now we put exit to exit from the router configuration. Yes? Go to the switch. To the switch. We can use the command. We use the terminal. Yes. Which command we use to exit from this control? To exit from this show. Control. We have control. No, not control C. Control shift. Okay. Control Shift 6 to exit from this show. We put here exit, and we have to access the switch using Telnet 192.168.1.11 password Cisco for the VTY password. Enable class and show version to know the version of your switch. Here we have the motherboard. Here we have the Ethernet MAC address. Yes. Show version. Show version. Here you have show version Cisco iOS. This is the version 12.2. Yes. ROM. And you have the all information needed for this part. For the switch model, iOS version, NVRAM, and iOS image files. Show brief interface. Here we have, I will display only the connected interface. Show IP interface brief. And we have the first, this interface here connected. Unassigned to a specific VLAN, because we don't assign this for a specific VLAN, but we have interface 5, it's up, not down. 6, I know. The MAC address table. To show the MAC address table, we use the command show MAC address table. Show MAC dash address table. Here we have the address table and the interface, يعني the MAC address of the connect interface. No. Softwares can be used with real switches, real routers, and with real network. We have this two softwares. TeraTerm. This can be used to access using Telnet or SSH. And the second software, POTI, also can be used to access remotely using Telnet or SSH. Gathering information about your computer, we use the command ipconfig, and you know how to use this command ipconfig /all to know command IP, for example, IP address, subnet mask, gateway, and the MAC address of your computer. This ping to the local host to test the ping. Appropriate command to test the TCP protocol stack with the NIC network interface control, يعني with local ping. Transert to ping to your loopback interface. We can do it from our PC. This command from I go to my topology, go back to PC, and here from I put exit here, and I put the command transert. This it take me, we have one hop to reach the destination اللي هو this loopback interface that exists in the router 1. normally you have one VLAN 1. لا لا VLAN 1 number VLAN 1 two ports because we have two interface. Here we have to show the ARP. Yes. Recording.